Two people, same town, same paycheck. Jake signs a lease on an apartment. Marcus buys a house down the street. Everyone in their life says the same thing to Marcus. Smart move. You own it now. And everyone says the same thing to Jake. You're just paying your landlord's mortgage. Here's what nobody on either side actually did. They didn't run the numbers. Because when you do, the gap between these two over the next 15 years is wide enough to change which one of them retires first. And the answer is not the one you were taught to give. Let's keep this scrupulously fair, because that's the only way the math means anything. Jake and Marcus both earn $90,000 a year. They both have $86,000 saved. Same city, same savings, same income. The only thing that's different is what they do with that money. Marcus uses his $86,000 as a 20% down payment on a $430,000 house. That's the typical American home price right now, in 2026. Jake rents a similar place for $2,000 a month, and he does one specific thing with his $86,000. He invests it. Hold on to that, because it's the part everyone forgets. For the first year, it isn't close. Marcus looks like he made the obvious, smart choice. He has a house, a real, physical thing with his name on it. Jake has a lease and a rent receipt. At a dinner party, there is no contest. One of them is building something, and one of them is, in everyone's words, paying for nothing. This is the part that feels true. It feels true because it's visible. You can stand in a house. You can't stand in an index fund. And there's a reason that feeling is so strong. Your brain files rent as money lost and a mortgage payment as money saved, even though, in the early years, most of that mortgage payment is interest that vanishes exactly like rent does. Same money leaving. One just feels like building, and one feels like burning. That single misread is why almost everyone repeats the line about throwing money away without ever checking it. And that feeling, that owning is obviously winning, is exactly what the numbers are about to argue with. So let's actually add up what it costs Marcus to own this house. Not the sticker price, the monthly reality. His loan is $344,000 at 6.5%. That's about $2,175 a month, just for the mortgage. Then property tax, roughly $400 a month. Homeowner's insurance, about $150, and the one people always leave out, maintenance. A house costs you around 1% of its value every year to keep standing. That's another $350 a month, on average, forever. Add it up. Marcus isn't paying $2,000 a month to own this house. He's paying about $3,075. Jake's rent is $2,000. So every single month, Jake has $1,075 that Marcus does not. And here's the part the dinner party never mentions. In the early years, Marcus barely owns any more of his house than he did on day one. Of that $2,175 mortgage payment, in year one, about $1,800 of it is pure interest. It doesn't buy him a single brick. It just rents the money. So Marcus feels like an owner, but for the first few years, he's mostly renting his loan from the bank instead of renting an apartment from a landlord. The money still leaves, it just leaves more quietly. And remember the $86,000? Marcus's is now locked inside his walls. Jake's $86,000 is in the market, growing, where he can actually reach it. There's one more cost, and it's waiting at the far end. The day Marcus sells, he hands roughly 6% of the price to agents and fees. On a $500,000 house, that's $30,000 gone on the way out the door. So the house doesn't just have to grow, it has to grow enough to cover what it costs to get in and what it costs to get out before Marcus comes out ahead at all. And there's one more thing about that upkeep number that catches people off guard. It doesn't arrive in smooth little monthly pieces. It arrives all at once. The roof doesn't cost $350 a month. It sits there quietly for 15 years and then asks for $12,000 in a single weekend. The water heater goes. The air conditioning dies in July. Marcus is the one who pays for every bit of it, and there's no landlord to call. Jake, when the water heater breaks, makes one phone call and goes back to bed. Now watch what that $1,075 gap does when Jake invests it every month, on top of his $86,000 head start. The market's long-run average return is about 7% a year after inflation. Nothing fancy. A plain index fund. The kind that just tracks the whole market and charges almost nothing. You are probably picturing one of these two people right now. The one who bought or the one who waited. So keep score with me because the scoreboard is about to flip. Year 1. Marcus has paid about $13,000 in closing costs just to get the keys and built only a few thousand in equity. Jake's investments have quietly grown past $100,000. On paper, Jake is ahead, but nobody believes it yet because Marcus has a house and Jake has a statement. Year 5. Marcus's house has appreciated, maybe to $500,000, and his equity is real now, around $180,000. But Jake's portfolio, the head start plus 5 years of that monthly gap, is sitting near $200,000. Jake is still ahead. And this is where you, watching this, have to be honest about one thing. The renter only wins if he actually invests the difference. If Jake rents and spends that $1,100 a month on nothing he remembers, Marcus wins by a mile. The house wins by force. Now let's change one number at a time and watch the answer move, because your situation probably isn't exactly Jake's. Say Marcus only puts 5% down instead of 20%. Now he keeps more cash, but his loan is bigger, and the bank adds mortgage insurance on top, another $200 a month until he's paid off enough. His monthly cost climbs, and the break-even point drifts later. A smaller down payment doesn't make the house cheaper, it just moves the finish line. Now change the city. In an expensive coastal market, a $700 house might still rent for only $2,800 a month. The gap Jake gets to invest is enormous, so renting and investing wins for well over a decade. Flip to a cheaper inland town where a $250,000 house rents for $1,500, and the gap shrinks. Buying catches up in just a few years. Same decision, same math, completely different answer. Because the ratio between the price and the rent is what actually drives this, not the word rent or the word buy. So picture your own town for a second. The place you'd rent and the place you'd buy. That ratio is the whole game, and it's sitting right there in your own zip code. Now here's where it turns, because Marcus has one weapon Jake doesn't. Time. Every year, more of Marcus's payment goes to equity instead of interest. His house keeps appreciating, and his mortgage payment stays frozen while Jake's rent climbs with inflation year after year. By around year 8, the two of them cross. Their net worth is roughly the same. 8 years. That's the number this entire decision turns on. After that, the house starts to pull ahead. By year 15, Marcus's equity could be over $450,000, while his payment is still the same $2,175 it always was. Jake is doing fine, but Marcus, the one everyone doubted at year 5, is now ahead. To be fair to the house, it has a quiet advantage the spreadsheet barely captures. It forces you to save. Jake has to choose to invest that $1,100 every month for 15 years, and most people simply don't. Marcus is forced to build equity whether he feels like it or not. For a lot of people, that forced discipline is worth more than any return. So which one was right? Both, and neither. Because the real answer was never rent versus buy. It was one question hiding underneath it. How long are you going to stay? If you'll move in 3 or 4 years, buying can quietly cost you because you eat the closing costs and the interest-heavy early years and leave before the house ever pays you back. If you'll stay 10, 15, 20 years, the house usually wins, and it wins comfortably. The break-even point is around 8 years. That's the line. renting is throwing money away was never true. And always buy, it's the smart thing was never true either. The number that decides it isn't on the listing, it's how long you'll stand still. So here's how you actually run this for yourself in about 2 minutes. Take the price of the house you'd buy and divide it by 1 year of rent on a place you'd actually live in. If that number is under about 15, buying tends to win sooner. If it's over 20, renting and investing usually wins for years. Then ask yourself the honest question, not the hopeful one. How long am I really staying? Be truthful about your job, your family, your life. If the answer is under 5 years, you almost never need to own. If it's clearly a decade or more, and the rest of your budget has room, the house quietly becomes the better deal. And whichever way it lands for you, you'll be deciding it on the math instead of on a sentence someone repeated at a dinner party. So before you sign anything, a lease or a mortgage, answer the one question that actually moves the math. Not, can I afford the payment? How many years am I really going to be here? Because that single number quietly decides whether you should be Jake or Marcus. And now you can run it for yourself.